I'm not sure how the time lag is going to work, but I'm just going to sketch. And that's it. Ta-da. Okay, first things first, I have it just laid here in my opening scene, so I'm going to... this is an old sketch I did, but I did it on top of something else I was working on. I think I did it all live, though. For the moment, you can still find it if you go back on the page. Yeah, this is the comic, though, that I actually want to work on. So this is what we're going to work on today. Panel by panel, I'll go through it. And yeah, just to refine it right now as a full sketch, I'm going to spread it out into a longer format, that's all, so that it's nice and scrollable.
I'm very frustrated at the steps the president has taken from repeatedly contradicting experts' advice.
And I also have the script open up next to me here. So now we'll bring it up to full screen.
So I'm really glad today, Mr. Chairman, that we have the opportunity to
all right.
directly from the experts and get answers to the questions that I am hearing at home.
Also in the background,
I have... When are we going to scale up this testing, especially now that we are going to community transition in the United States? After all, it's only after a long
still World Health, or the health officials, testify on COVID. So basically it's an update.
Seem to confirm what experts have been warning, that this is likely to continue spreading. We now have more than 100 cases of coronavirus that have been tested in this country, including repatriated.
And I'm saving this out without all that background stuff to a different...
First of all, we do need to be listening to the experts and making sure facts and science drive our response. In particular, the public needs to be able to trust the information.
Okay, how do I have that sketched and why?
The government is in no way influenced by political considerations or ideology. The policies being put in place are based on evidence about how to keep our families safe, not fear or prejudice. I was very heartened to hear your assurances, Dr. Fauci, that contrary to reporting, you've not been muzzled by the administration. It is essential that continue. We cannot have an effective response without accurate information.
And for right now, maybe that's the best reason to not have the camera on, because I've been sneezing and coughing a lot. Very sniffly. Where do I have this?
Are absolutely critical, but also we're never
move that over. And sorry guys, I'm about to start laying in lines, I swear.
Congress, as well, is now working on a bipartisan emergency supplemental funding agreement that will reimburse our state and local public health officials for costs they've already incurred combating coronavirus and provide additional resources to our communities. It will guarantee resources are available to respond to outbreak hotspots. It will support development of vaccines and therapeutics to
just straight dark lines, I think,
and invest in public and global health programs to keep us prepared to respond to future emergencies. I do want to thank and recognize all the Democrats and Republicans who came together to work quickly on this package, and I urge the Senate to pass it very quickly. I'm very glad we're working on that agreement that goes well beyond what President Trump's inadequate request for $1.25 billion in new funding, and I really again urge the Senate to take this up as soon as the House does, get it passed and get it to our local communities who are dealing with this. I'm also very encouraged by this committee's strong bipartisan record in responding to public health emergencies as well. Just last year, this committee strengthened and reauthorized the law underpinning so many of the federal efforts and resources we are seeing employed today. So I especially want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for our work together, Senator Casey and Berg, on that. Third, we have got to be sure we aren't just responding to the latest developments, but staying ahead of this crisis by planning ahead, because this is not likely going to end anytime soon. We are already seeing some of the challenges that will come next, like the strain this will put on our healthcare system. We're seeing that in Washington State. We need to make sure our hospitals have the capacity to address this virus without overwhelming their ability to provide other care. We need to make sure that those healthcare workers caring for coronavirus patients are safe from infections themselves, including by making sure we have a sufficient supply of protective equipment. We need to manage our nation's drug and medical device supply, especially considering
I'm not enjoying this.
demand for some doing that to skyrocket. And how many drugs and devices are
That's
manufactured
fine.
in countries where an outbreak could interrupt production, something that we again are already seeing. We also need to give adequate attention to our public health education.
Because
In an age where
I should
disinformation has been weaponized
just be
and
using this
falsehoods
as an
gain traction, as
opportunity.
we all know faster than ever, we can't let conspiracies stoke panic or spur ugly discrimination or spread dangerous misinformation or undermine our public health experts.
My problem here is I'm trying to make it look like the characters when I should be trying to make it look like
to bullying and harassment that is motivated by stereotypes
the people in the costumes.
And we also have to account now for the ways that some of the harmful healthcare policies have undermined our ability to respond to public health threats. Our uninsured rate
Actually,
is
should
going
I?
up again for the first time in years. Junk plants, which are not required to cover diagnostic tests or vaccines, are expanding. And those actions make it much harder for people to get the care they need to keep this crisis under control. So we have to make sure that everyone who needs it has access to diagnostic testing going forward. And while a vaccine is still likely over a year away, we need to make sure cost is not a barrier for that as well. But it's not just our healthcare system we need to be considering as we work to stay ahead of this disease. Communities and families right now are facing difficult decisions. What measures should our schools take to keep our students safe? What can parents do? When should schools close? Employers and workers in my state, and I'm sure others, are facing similar questions about whether their employees should go to work or whether they should stay home. I will be pressing Secretary DeVos more later this week about how her department is helping to prepare for these issues, and I've written to Secretary Scalia about this as well. And as so often the case, this public health threat will have hidden and higher costs for those who are low-wage workers, who don't have affordable
Still not
childcare,
feeling it.
who don't have health
So,
insurance,
when you're
and
not
are
feeling
experiencing
something,
homelessness.
and you're just
In my
not
home
getting
state,
to it,
people are being told to stay home for
or what
2
I like to
weeks
do,
if they are sick. They're not
pull up a
tested.
blank
If
page
you're
and just
tested,
scribble on it.
guess who can't stay home if
Like,
you don't
just
have
get
childcare, if you're a low-wage worker,
anything
if
out of
you're
your head. Mine often leads
when those
back to
people's
Joker,
basic
obviously.
needs are not met, they cannot
Um,
make choices to protect
'cause
themselves, which means they can't make choices that best protect others too.
if you're
because
not
one
feeling
person getting sick has
the thing, you got to get that
repercussions for all of those who
line
are.
confidence up, that feeling
Situations
of
like this remind us we
taking
are
what's in your
all
head and actually
community
putting it
in
on the
a
paper.
very real sense. We all have a stake in well-being. So when we talk about
It's
the
important
impacts
to
of
scribble.
this health threat, I want to be clear, this is not
Because,
just about changes in
I
the
mean,
stock market, but we also
it's all created from kind of a scribble in your head.
families actually have, and that is something I plan to raise today and will keep raising. I look forward today to hearing from all of our witnesses about how
It's funny, yesterday in the studio was the first time I think I've mentioned Wild Bologna to anybody at the studio, possibly. An old webcomic of mine, and I mean old. But it's funny because I pronounced Bologna, because that's the character's name, Bologna, because it's kind of plays off a newfie
cooperation, which is typical of the way you work in dealing with this
pronunciation.
issue.
That's how I say it, Bologna. Have a Bologna sandwich. But Wild Bologna.
For senators,
And he's going to be somebody you see coming up in here a lot as well. Just thought I'd make mention of for whatever ungodly reason, just because the thought came to me, I suppose.
So senators made sure that there weren't any secrets, that what we were saying in private is the same.
This is just sketching out of my head, too. This is just like, hey, draw a face.
In public. And I agree with her that we should listen to our four professional, respected experts who are here today. Each one will have 5 minutes to give his or her testimony, then we'll go to a round of questions. I gave each of them a pretty good introduction earlier, so I'll
Testimony is such an interesting way to
except to say Dr. Shookett
premise all of
is
this.
the principal deputy
Because, I
director
mean,
for the Centers for
yes.
Disease Control and Prevention.
It's testimony. I guess it's literally to make it
Dealing with
100%
responses to SARS,
above board what they're saying.
anthrax, to pandemic influenza
Makes sense.
over the last 30 years. Dr. Tony Fauci is the top person at the National Institutes of Health in infectious
Actually,
diseases.
I think
He's
I'll
held
bring
his
those
position
down.
since
For the,
1984. He's worked with 6
looks like
presidents
Zaz right now.
and led the
But that's
institute's
just the baldness probably
efforts,
working on it.
on
Gotham
AIDS,
Zaz, I mean,
influenza,
obviously.
malaria, Ebola,
I think that should be
other
obvious.
infectious diseases.
I forget the actor's name.
Is Assistant Secretary for
He played that
Preparedness and
character
Response,
fucking
Department of
phenomenally.
Health and Human Services. As I mentioned
I would
earlier,
like
he
to see
spent
more of that
time
Zaz.
as career officer and
If they
physician
bring back
for
Cameron to do
Special
a
Assistant
film
President George W. Bush,
in the Joker
worked with
universe
Senator
there,
Burr, he helped write the legislation
I mean
that
the Gotham's
makes our country better
Batman
prepared
universe,
for
I guess, but it's
pandemics.
more the Joker
And
universe.
finally,
I mean,
Dr. Stephen Hahn, who is the commissioner of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
if they're going to do a movie, they should do it the way they started the series, when their plan was to do like a police-style drama.
Cancer Centers.
That will be neat as a film now to take it from where it is in the future and do that.
Forward to your testimony, Dr. Shookett.
Most of these characters still
Thank you
exist.
so much, Chairman Alexander, Ranking Member Murray, and
Maybe
members of
some
the
have
committee.
just gone the way of the
CDC's
dodo.
role in this whole of government, whole of society response is built on decades of our infectious disease experience,
Actually, you know what?
pandemic,
I'm
influenza,
not
and
gonna
other
have that
emergency
be the
preparedness
neck.
planning.
I'm
Our
gonna bring
response
the
is
collar up.
dependent on support for core public health capabilities at CDC
And
and
maybe
at a
slant these
network
out
of
just a little bit.
dedicated frontline public health workers at the state and local level living in your communities. 2 months into this response to a novel virus, CDC has learned a lot. We have acted nimbly in the United States and around the world, but we do so with humility about the work ahead. There are many things that each of us can do as individuals, businesses, communities, and organizations.
This shit's
And we're
important to
thrilled
listen to.
see the website posted behind the senators. CDC is responding with the following strategy. Our goal has been to slow the spread of this virus through a multi-layered, aggressive containment and as needed
I'm just gonna
mitigation.
fill in a bit of this.
We're using evidence-based public health interventions that include early case recognition, isolation,
And now let's see
contact
where we
tracing. We've issued travel advisories and dealt with targeted travel
plot in
restrictions,
this.
as well as the use of quarantine
Here.
for individuals returning from transmission hot zones, including through funneling of flights from Hubei province and mainland China to 11 airports. We've worked with the CBP to get data to ensure that appropriate contact could happen through the state and local public health departments, and we've supported
Kinda
the
slicked
quarantined
back,
repatriated Americans from
but also
Hubei
falling
province
down, I
and
guess.
from the Diamond Princess cruise ship. We've been working with the World Health Organization and ministries of health around the world, underscoring our leadership in global public health and the power of our investments in international influenza surveillance and global health security. More than 1,500 staff at the Centers for Disease Control have been responding to this outbreak. The situation today is evolving and dynamic.
You hear that
In just
word,
2
right?
months, this outbreak has grown from a cluster of pneumonia in China in one city to affecting over 70 countries and territories around the world, with more than 90,000 cases and about 3,000 deaths. We are now in the United States seeing, in addition to the very small number of travel-associated cases or close contacts, we are seeing community transmission in a few areas and a tragic outbreak in a healthcare facility, long-term care facility in Washington State. Our hearts go out to the people affected by this virus, directly or indirectly, and to everyone who's working so hard to help it.
See, that doesn't sound good,
There are
does it?
steps each of us can take. I want to recognize that people are concerned about this. As always, our number one priority is the health
And as always, keep your.
We
Oh, what did I just
appreciate
do?
that Americans are taking this threat seriously and continuing to seek information about how they can
The
be
wrong
prepared.
thing.
While the immediate risk to the general American public remains low, and the
I
US
always try to
government's
keep all my
commitment to
sketches
keep it low, risk
until
bears by exposure, and
the
some
point when
areas
I
of the
really
country are now experiencing community
feel like
spread.
getting rid of them, because sometimes I
State
like
and
to
local
lay them over the
jurisdictions
top
where
of a
community
finished piece
spread
and
of
just
the
have like
virus is
sketchy bits show
occurring
through.
are
So
intensely investigating and assessing potential community
easier than faking them
interventions.
back in later.
CDC's got staff on the ground in Washington and
Which I also
California
have done. Just you
elsewhere
fake
to
the
provide technical assistance.
messiness
Our goal
around
in
a
this
final
type
piece
of
to make it
community measures is to
look
develop
more sketchy than
principles
it
and
actually
tools
was.
based on our
Because some
updated
pieces just go
information
directly to final. I mean,
and based
not
on what
directly
we've
to
learned
final,
from
but
other areas
from
that have experienced
the
AI,
quickest
including
sketch.
Singapore, where they've done a
And you're like,
great
okay,
job
well, I
of
don't need to
a key
draw in
principle
all the other
is to
stuff
protect the most
because
vulnerable.
it's stuff I definitely know.
I trust you as senior leaders in your communities to help us with our mission.
If that makes any sense.
To provide clear information to you and your constituents by urging people to get the facts from cdc.gov, which you can see up there.
All right.
And I want to say that
I was not feeling this morning. Like I said, I'm not.
Thank you, Dr.
I don't
Shepard.
know.
Dr. Fauci. Go.
Still in an odd mental
Thank you
space.
very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member.
I did have a great meeting yesterday
I
with
appreciate the opportunity
one of my
to
bosses,
spend a few minutes talking to you
and
about one of the aspects of the oil government
it clarified
response
some
to this
things, and that was good.
outbreak.
Um,
And that is in the realm of what we
got
call
some stress off my back,
interventions.
but I'm
With
constantly
regard to therapy, namely
just,
treatment
I
of
don't
a
know.
person who was already infected.
Probably doesn't help that I listen to all of this stuff, but it makes me happy while listening to news. So it's kind of that counterbalance where you have to, I guess, work out what you want more of.
And I'd like to just take a moment to kind of explain why when we talk
Now
about
I'm just
American public,
mumbling.
the global public,
It don't
understandably
make
wants to
no
know how
sense.
quickly we can get intervention.
Alright, now I'm gonna just add back
Let's
in
start off first with therapy.
some shadow.
As we know from the data that have come out predominantly from China, if you look at the now 90,000 people who've been infected and the number of deaths that have occurred, about 80% of individuals who get infected do really quite well without any specific intervention. Namely, they spontaneously recover. However, about 15 to up to 20% of individuals, usually those who are elderly and in risk groups, wind up getting serious disease requiring supportive care. That could be oxygen, that could be intensive care, that could be intubation, or even more dramatic interventions. So we want desperately to have a therapy for these individuals. There are a number of candidate therapies that literally, as I speak to you today, are being tested in randomized controlled trials. One of these is called remdesivir, which was developed by the Gilead company. It's been tested in a large trial in China, and it is also being tested here in the United
Oh
States
man.
in an NIH-sponsored trial
Raccoon
in
City.
collaboration with Gilead. We should know within a period of a few months, several months, whether or not this particular drug works. If
Oh man, the Gilead. Of course it is, because why wouldn't it be?
guarantee that it'll work. Or
Oh, fucking wow.
A little bit behind them. But the timetable for treatment is different than the timetable for a vaccine. And that's why I want to see if we can clear up any misunderstandings.
Alright, now I'm gonna add in some
out there.
painted in
Right
white
now, the technology that we have has allowed
up at the
us
top,
to go
just
from the
because.
time
Oh
the
my
sequence
goodness.
of the virus was put in a public database
To get rid of this kind of line that looked like it was there, and also add in the shine, because the hair is kind of slicked, but kind of thinning. So kind of my hair.
Within about 2 months or maybe even 6 weeks. That would be a record. However, that is not a vaccine because it will take about 3 months or more to show that it is safe. And then if you show that it's safe, you've got to put it into what's called a phase 2 trial to show that it works. And the reason is there's a medical, ethical, and other considerations, is that we'd be giving this to normal people to prevent infection. So you must be sure the edict of medicine, first do no harm. So we need to make sure it's safe, and we need to make sure it works. That entire process will take at least a year and a half. So when we hear talk about the vaccine's going to be ready in a couple of months, it won't be ready for being deployed. It's going to take a while. So we're going to have a multi-step process. We have the public health measures that you heard about from Dr. Scribbler, from Dr. Hahn and Dr.
Hi, I'm that Joker guy. If you are having a good day,
Excuse me. But the issue is, in addition to those public health measures,
welcome to my
interventions
channel,
are gonna be critical.
where you listen
So
to
we
the
hope
news
that we'll be able to get good
with a
news,
depressed dude
and that we'll be able to say
talking to
in the next
himself.
X number of months that we have candidates, but there'll be no
Have a
guarantee
great
that
day.
The only way to know would be to do the tests that I'm talking about.
Well,
So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to update you on a regular basis about where we are with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fauci.
all right,
Dr.
and
Well,
Thank you, Chairman.
not
Alexander,
feeling this now either.
Member Murray, and distinguished members of the committee.
There was
I
the
really
sketch.
appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today on how ASPR is supporting the HHS and federal
Well,
government
I'd leave that
response
under there.
to the
All right,
coronavirus
and
situation. I think you heard from Dr. Shuckett.
let's throw this down here.
Rapidly evolving
Not feeling it.
situation. This morning, let's take a couple
Let's
of minutes
zoom
to
in.
give you an idea about how we're trying to
Let's do
address this
something that
problem
is
from a
kind of from a
strategic
reference, but kind of not.
to
Something I'm not
December
using as a
emergency.
reference.
ASPR has a four-pronged approach
Something
to
from a
to
background.
basically manage and support the domestic preparedness and response, incident management, direct to support the states and other entities, supporting the healthcare system of the United States, and also
All right.
countermeasure development. In the area of medical countermeasure development, we're working very closely with Dr. Fauci at NIH and our DoD colleagues to see what kind of
Okay, I'm gonna have to just open reference. I could draw more stuff from my head, but it's just gonna end up being more faces over and over and over again, I think.
Specifically, we're looking at areas that would allow us to do point-of-care diagnostics, which I think Senator Murray was.
Ref.
And we have some very
Reference.
promising candidates that will take several months to bring online. But we also identifying potential therapeutics. Dr. Fauci has talked about remdesivir. We're also working with a company on monoclonal antibodies and looking at two potential vaccine candidates. One that was a product of the investments that Congress made in pandemic influenza with a recombinant vaccine that is licensed by the FDA, made by Sanofi, and another one that is a candidate vaccine that was developed for the Ebola crisis made by Janssen. So those are very important and very active activities we're moving on, first of all. And second, we're looking at how do we support.
And now I'm just letting you listen to the news.
Through the preparedness program, working in coordination with the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program that CDC administers, we've been looking at how can we basically work better to improve collaboration, coordination amongst hospitals and the public health sector and other entities like the
Who
Ministry of
has the
Services.
most boring
Just wanna
live
highlight one
streams on
area that,
YouTube?
again,
It's me,
Congress was very crucial in
that
developing
Joker
and
guy.
deploying during the Ebola crisis, which is the National Ebola Treatment Network. That has proved to be vital
Or
in terms
It's
of our ability
Me,
to manage this,
Starving
not only
Artist.
through repatriation of Americans
It sounds
who
more
came
country.
from Wuhan, but also from the Diamond Princess. That capacity,
It's
that
Me.
capability, and that
Oh, I like that old style there of Joker.
at the locations of those military bases, as well as I think
The
some of
parachute
Washington,
pant looking
actually house a number of people
real
through the regional Ebola treatment network.
old.
That was vital in terms of how we could do that.
Parachute pants?
The other
No,
issue is
not
around
parachute
how
pants.
we do
Maybe that is
incident
what I mean. I don't know what they're
Since
called.
this had
Like
started,
zoot suit.
we've been working with FEMA to actually put in place and we've activated formally as of yesterday an incident management network that really is based on the national response framework. Is how can we bring the whole of government to respond? This is the first time we've done it formally. We've done it under exercises.
All right.
It's a means by which we can
Just
leverage
fucking
FEMA
pick
and all the
something.
emergency support functions that may be necessary by states when asked
Motherfucker.
to basically employ responders to assist them in dealing with it. And the last area I'll just highlight is really around the direct support to state and other entities. I mentioned our repatriation efforts. 1,100 Americans brought back under very difficult circumstances from Wuhan and from the Diamond Princess. First time that was ever done. But we had been working 2 years in advance with cross HHS and with our Japanese colleagues to actually prepare for such an event. And we're actually supposed to have an exercise in March of this year to actually employ this as a test case.
Okay, let's do that. It's a face, but
As a real thing. And so we
be fun.
figured that.
Ish.
More importantly, we're now focused on how do we provide direct
Oh wait,
state
why is my
aid.
live chat over
So with the
there
state of
and over there?
Washington, we've used the Strategic National
So
Stockpile to
confusing.
deploy
All right.
personal protective equipment to the healthcare workers.
Let's
Like
go.
Dr. Schuppen has said, we are very concerned about how do we work proactively with healthcare entities like long-term care facilities, like elder care areas where we know the most vulnerable populations reside, and how do we shield them from the effects of this potential virus. And lastly, we need to actually employ and deploy
Just
some
get
of
that
our national
shape
disaster medical system
in there.
personnel,
Very
as well as
itchy.
other federal healthcare personnel to assist them.
Doesn't need to be even nearly perfect.
Really together as a team to respond to this. So with that, I'll pause and yield back the rest of my time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Cadlick. Dr. Hahn, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Alexander and members of the committee. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about FDA's efforts.
So what I'm going to do is probably take that Spider-Man one, and it'll be the first one I move over onto my phone. I'm going to try to mess with it there.
That's why we
See if I can
FDA career men
refine
and
the
women
sketch that
to
way.
address this and to proactively look at aspects of diagnostics.
Okay, now wow, this head looks absolutely awful.
I will focus today's update on
I'm
areas
not
where FDA
paying
is
enough
using
attention to
information,
my
supply chain impacts, and
reference
expediting the
photo.
availability of certain laboratory-developed diagnostic tests. Please remember that some of this information that I can share now does change quickly, but it is my hope that this information will help members of
Okay,
this
I see what I did. I
as well
just
as the
sketched in the top of it. Yeah,
better visibility
whatever.
of the emerging situation. Regarding the drug supply, we have been and continue to be proactive in contacting manufacturers, not only to remind them of the applicable reporting requirements, but also to ask them to assess their entire supply chain. And much of what we're asking manufacturers, they are not required to tell us, but as you might expect, they've been very forthcoming in these discussions. Since January 24th, FDA has been in touch with more than 180 manufacturers of human drugs to assess whether they face any drug shortages due to the outbreak. As a result of this outreach, last week one manufacturer did tell us about a shortage related to the novel coronavirus. That was reported and immediately disclosed to the American public through our drug shortage list. The good news about that is that we are working very closely with that manufacturer, and we expect that to be resolved in a very short period of time. The other good news is that there are alternatives to that drug that are available to providers and patients. I know that
Yes,
there's
but are they
interest in
alternatives
details
that
surrounding
do
this
not
drug.
did
I
have
can't provide
the
any
same
details. It's
lack of side
confidential
effects?
commercial information.
Alternatives are not always.
I think this also highlights
whatever.
what we put
Okay.
in the budget proposals regarding the authorities at the FDA this year. We do not have the authorities to actually require manufacturers of devices to tell us about shortages. Again, they've been very cooperative with us, as have the drug companies with respect to giving us the information that we need. Please be assured that if other potential shortages or disruptions of medical products are identified by the FDA, we will be very transparent about this, and we will quickly share that information with you. A fast-breaking bit of information that we just found out this morning is that India has restricted the export of 26 active pharmaceutical agreements for export, which represents about 10% of their export capacity. We're working very closely to look at that list to assess how that will affect the medical supply chain. Regarding devices, we have been in touch with 63 manufacturers of essential medical devices. We've been aware of we've been told of no shortages of those devices, although we understand on the demand side, particularly on personal protective equipment and masks, that there is significant pressure and demand, particularly domestically. But we're working very closely with those manufacturers. What we have found is that some of the manufacturers in China have reported disruptions in the workforce, as you might expect, particularly in Wuhan province. In an effort to mitigate any potential shortage of anything, respirators, other personal protective agreement for healthcare, FDA, as you know, yesterday issued an use authorization to allow the use of NIOSH-approved disposable filtering face piece respirators, so masks basically, and to allow some flexibility for healthcare workers and to increase the supply within the nation. We have a lot of information that we're communicating to hospitals and healthcare workers about that, but that should increase the capacity for the healthcare system. Regarding diagnostic tests, on February 4th, as was mentioned by Chairman Alexander, the FDA issued an EUA to enable immediate use of diagnostic tests that was developed by CDC and facilitate
I'm not sure what that is.
CDC qualified public health labs. On February 29th, we also issued an EUA
Can't really
to
tell.
authorize testing for the COVID-19 at 2 public health labs
Whatever.
in New York. And since that time,
I'm gonna zoom out a little bit
West
just to
Coast,
get
Washington,
kind of an overall feel of it.
that they've begun testing using this emergency EUA approach. We've had a lot of contact with both private and public and
I'm
academic
gonna start
centers
building it up
with
to
respect
actually be the face that it
As
is.
I mentioned yesterday, we've seen cooperation with significant expansion in the ability to perform those tests. We have one manufacturer who's working closely with the CDC to expand that over this upcoming week, and we expect that to be available, those kits, to providers by the end of the week, and that expansion will continue. Thank you for the opportunity to update the committee on the FDA agency's response to
Bring those
this
eyes down a
crisis,
little
and I
bit.
look forward to answering your questions.
Maybe a
Thank
little
you,
bit.
Dr. Hahn. We have very good attendance by senators. We're going to continue the hearing until 12:30. So every senator will have a chance to ask questions. I know
And
that
rush
the witnesses
again.
have been asked to go to senators' lunches with the vice president, but that's us. So we'd like for you to stay here until you answer our questions and then go to lunch with us and answer our questions further. And I think we can complete that by 12:30. I'm going to ask senators to keep the total amount of time for each one on questions and answers to 5 minutes each, so every senator has a chance to ask questions. Dr. Fauci, I'm going to ask you a series of questions within my 5 minutes, and these are the kind of questions I get at home, or sometimes here. Senator Roberts asked me yesterday, and I couldn't give him the exact answer. What do we mean by community transmission?
Community transmission means when there are cases that are in the community in which the original source is not known. If you get someone who travels, let's say, from Wuhan to the United States, and you know they're a travel case, and one of their contacts gets infected, you know the source. Whereas if all of a sudden
We're talking about person to person. That means
Right.
we know who it is.
But yeah, no, you person to person, but you don't know what the original source is. In the state of Washington,
No, that's good. I thought there was a difference between person to person and community
no,
transmission.
that's any transmission of an infection is from a person to a person, except
But what if you do know who it is? What do you call that?
well, if you're able to identify it, that is not so-called community. But if it's community, you have like a cluster in the community.
I understand that, but what do you call it? If Senator Murray has it, gives it to me, what do you call that?
That's person-to-person
All right,
transmission.
and community transmission means if I get it, we don't know who caused it.
Right, exactly. You don't know what the original source is.
Well, what are we at the peak of the flu season?
Well, the answer is likely it may be even on the way down. If you look at the curves,
We're just over the peak of.
well, it went up, it went down, it went up, and then it's starting to come back.
Talking about the ordinary flu we have every year. About how many Americans, if you had to estimate, have flu this year?
There are probably around 30+ million infections, a couple of 100,000 hospitalizations.
In the United States?
In the United States.
And how many Americans die every year from what we call the flu?
You know, it ranges from a low year of 50 to 20,000 to the high year that we had in 2017-18, which was about 70+ thousand people.
About 70,000 people.
In one of the worst
In
years.
one of the worst years. The flu is a respiratory disease like coronavirus, is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, how do you know if you have the flu as opposed to coronavirus?
Well, the definitive test would be to get a test for the flu or a test for the coronavirus.
So you need a test.
there is overlap in symptoms. The situation with coronavirus is predominantly fever and a lower respiratory infection, as opposed to an upper respiratory infection starting off with, and then you might get a pulmonary.
And now is where I'm taking the reference, and I'm just going. Now it looks enough like it. I'm going to make it into a Joker style character. Surprise, surprise.
Usually it's upper respiratory, then lower.
So fever and a cough is,
Fever and a cough.
I'll add in my.
okay, what should you do if you have fever and a cough?
And what I will do is go to a separate layer.
Circumstance. If you're in the middle of a flu season, right, and you have fever and a cough, if you have a cough, it could be a pneumonia. You should see a physician. Certainly, if you're a person in a risk group, elderly or underlying condition, during the flu season, you should see a physician because we do have antivirals for flu, and you can be helped by doing that.
Should we all be wearing masks?
No,
Why?
because right now there isn't anything going around in the community, certainly not coronavirus, that is calling for the broad use of masks in the community.
Why do healthcare workers wear masks in the hospital?
Well, because a healthcare worker who is taking care of someone who is known infected with a transmissible virus, that's different from walking around in the streets wearing a mask.
Are children getting coronavirus?
To a much lesser extent than adults. And for reasons that are still unclear, it may be that they are getting infected, but their symptoms are so low they're not being recognized. But in a number of reports that have come out from China, there are very few cases less than 15 years old. You'll always find the exception, but most of the cases are a mean age of about 50.
What can we do, or what can our families do to protect ourselves? What's the most effective?
Right now, and I think the question you asked about flu is important. Right now, we are still in a flu season. What you can do to protect yourself against the possibility of coronavirus is the kinds of things you would do to protect yourself against flu. Now, obviously, you get a flu shot, you can at least protect yourself against flu. But also things like, we always say it sounds simplistic, but it's true, washing of hands, if possible, staying away from people who are coughing and sneezing. If you yourself are infected, stay out of work, don't send your children to school if they're infected.
My time is up. Senator Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm gonna yield the first questioning to Senator Jones, who has to leave for a flight. I will take the second round.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Dr. Fowler, I'd like to follow up on that real quickly. So if somebody right now in Alabama presents and
Now I'm gonna
they didn't
make
get the
this
flu
where
shot,
her
so
shirt
all of a sudden
falls
they've got
in.
a fever and they've got a cough, they go get a flu test. Now, will that test, if they
And that's
don't have the flu but have coronavirus,
Shoulder
will
blade.
that test come back negative?
not shoulder blade,
Right.
clavicle.
All right, so they should be concerned if they present some symptoms for the flu and that comes back negative. Follow-up question on that is about testing. I didn't hear a lot about the testing. We've had some concerns in this country about testing. It's inadequate to say the least right now, but I know there's efforts. What capacity do we have to do the testing as you sit here today, and how are we working to
They did
expand that,
actually
and
just
when will
explain
all
that. This guy probably wasn't listening or probably wasn't
Yeah,
here.
thank you. The
No.
CDC's piece in this
More
is
likely
to
not
supply
listening.
the public health labs with tests, and we are rapidly doing so. We've developed the test very quickly and detected some problems after the quality control steps were measured.
Bring it
So
down
by the
even
end of
lower
this week, really all of the
to go
state
in
labs,
on,
public
like, the
health labs
more
should be able to do testing. But I think for
softer
context,
parts.
it's important to understand what the clinical labs do
So
in
I can
respiratory
build it up
testing. Last week
from
in the
super
United
low.
States, clinical labs tested 42,000 respiratory specimens for influenza, and 11,000 of those were positive for influenza. And so far this year, the clinical labs have tested almost 1 million respiratory specimens, and about 200,000 were positive. Public health labs, as opposed to 1 million so far this year, tested about 62,000. Public health labs are a tiny piece of the testing world. That said, most people with influenza don't actually get tested. We have about 30 million people with influenza so far this year, and as I said, about 1 million tests. So I think the public health issue is to detect early when there is emergence of this virus, recognizing that travelers are in the community, as we've said.
There.
And then right now, we're really
Get kind of a
keen with the
texture in on the
FDA's
whole thing.
assistance to get those clinical labs up and running, and that's really an FDA.
As absolutely
So how will
horribly
the
dirty as that
testing-
texture is.
How much more capacity will we have by the end of this week versus 2
Put
weeks, 3
it
weeks?
everywhere, so that we can then bring in some white.
Yes, Senator, we work with the CDC
Kinda
on
pop
their
on top of
test.
that.
We're using their, we're not, but the outside
'Cause that's kind of the
manufacturers,
plan
other
I have
companies
here.
are using their platform right now to further develop the test. Our expectation
I'm
in
gonna let
talking
the
to
eyes
companies
sit
that's
really
scaling this
dark.
up, is that we
And
should
just
have
pop
the
'em out
capacity
after.
by the end of the week to have kits available to the laboratories to perform about 1 million tests.
Great. One thing I would urge to please continue, as I think both Senator Alexander and Senator Moore said, please get information out there. We're about to head into the allergy season as well, and I just can tell you people are so scared out there right now that the first time they sneeze with an allergy, they're going to think that they've got this, and that we need to make sure that we try to educate folks so that those tests that we have, those limited ones, are for the right reasons. Second question I have, it concerns rural areas. In my state alone, we've got hospitals that are we have another rural hospital closing this week in the state of Alabama. Are there specific things that you guys are doing to make sure that rural hospitals who are living from paycheck to paycheck almost have the resources that they need, the financial resources and the tools that they need to make sure their communities are
That's an important question.
I'll ask Dr. Catlin.
Yes, sir, thank you for the question, and frankly, we've been monitoring that situation very carefully with our healthcare coalitions that are funded by the Hospital Preparedness Program, and we do recognize there is a paucity in some areas of resources as well as assets and staff, and so we're investigating about telemedicine and how we can basically make that available. As Dr. Fauci said, the majority of individuals
There we go.
with the coronavirus don't need care.
That will
The
do
critical
for
thing is
that.
identifying those people who can, and that is something that CDC
And what I
is
want.
messaging to kind of identify guidelines when individuals who may be at risk, particularly for severe disease,
Because
should
why
seek
not?
hospital care. And if Dr. Shippett would like to follow on that, but we're looking at telemedicine options as one piece of the
I'm
puzzle
gonna
that would help us fill in the gap, but there needs to be a long-term solution to that challenge.
In
Toss
that
in a
regard, I
quick
appreciate that. I
pink.
had a question on that, but I also would encourage you to get with CMS and have them allow
And
for
then a
reimbursements for telemedicine. They don't do that right now. And
quick blue.
That could be a really important
So
factor.
we're in conversations with them.
Perfect, thank you. All right, I think
Thank
that's
you.
all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Senator Burke.
Mr. Chairman, for my 5
Let
minutes,
that
I'd
trickle a
like to
little bit.
please consent that I enter a statement into the record and that I ask on behalf of all members that if they can enter a statement into the record, that they can. And just to remind members, in 2005, when Senator Kennedy and I passed the HAPA, it was with this day in mind that we would be faced with a pandemic and we're close to that determination. And I would only say the temptations to do legislation are great. Before we do it, read what the statute says. Read what the latitude is that our responders have. Let them do their jobs. Dr. Hahn has expressed that he just did 2 emergency use authorization. That's part of the work of this committee. So let's not be too quick to go out and encumber them with micromanaging what they do.
So we'll go ahead and make unanimous consent to put that in and before the reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Shippett, I heard you say,
Multiply it down.
Earlier today, the Federal Open Market Committee announced a 0.5 percentage point reduction in the target range for the federal funds rate, bringing that range to 1 to 1.25%.
We're getting a breaking news now.
My colleagues and I took this action to help the U.S. economy keep strong in the face of new risks to the economic outlook. The fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong. The unemployment rate has been near half-century lows for well more than a year. The pace of job gains has been solid, and wages have been rising. These strong labor market conditions have underpinned solid household spending, which has been the key driver of economic growth over the
Yeah.
past year. At the
And
time of
just
our
as a
FOMC meeting
quick
in January, prospects for continued
top
economic
layer,
growth remained
I'm
favorable,
going to just
and we
toss
judged
in a
that
bunch of
monetary
color.
policy was well positioned to support the economy.
Give it
Since then, the spread of the coronavirus has brought new challenges.
Skin-ish
and risks.
hue because it's Harley, so
The
her
virus
skin
has
is
afflicted many communities around the
outrageously
world,
white,
and
but
our
I do
thoughts
want
and
to have a
prayers go out to those who've been harmed.
quick
The
human
outbreak has also
tone on it.
disrupted economic activity in many countries and has prompted significant movements in financial markets. The virus and the measures that are being
And
taken
then I'm
to
gonna
contain
grab a blonde.
will surely weigh on economic activity,
Throw
both
it
here
in
and abroad, for
over
some time.
this.
We are beginning to see the effects on the tourism and travel industries, and we are hearing concerns from industries that rely
Stay
on
home.
global
I'm
supply
really just, and
chains. The magnitude
I
and
don't know.
persistence of the
Let me know how
overall
you
uncertainty
feel,
in the
but
economy
I'm really
will be
tempted to
entirely
just
uncertain, and the situation
call it
remains
in and
a
stay
fluid one.
home for the next like 2 weeks
Against this background, the committee judged that
and
the
see
risks
where
to the
this
US
goes.
outlook have changed
See if I
materially.
come out of that as Rick
In
Grimes.
response, we have eased the stance of monetary policy to provide some more
'Cause-
support to the economy. Of course, the ultimate solutions to this challenge will come from others, particularly health professionals. We can
It's not a
and will
fear
do
of
our
death,
part,
it's a fear of
however, to keep the
unnecessary
US economy
death.
strong as we meet this challenge. As always, our actions are guided by our congressional mandate to promote maximum growth and price stability.
Alright, and I'm just gonna toss it a
In
little
the
bit
weeks
in
and
there
months
too,
ahead, we will
because
continue to closely monitor developments and their implications for the economic
why
outlook,
not?
and we will use our tools
I'm
and
gonna
act
multiply
as
that
appropriate
down.
to support the economy. Thank you, and I'll be happy
It's
to
funny
take
enough. It
your
doesn't look
questions.
exactly like I wanted it to look, but heck, why not?
Thank you, Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal.
One more layer.
Two questions. First, what changed between last week when many
And
of your colleagues
for this
seemed to
one,
indicate it was still too soon to tell
I'm
how
going
this
to
might influence the
directly
outlook? What changed between last week and
do a pink
and
shine
today? And then how much confidence do you
over
have that there will be a quick and
the
relatively
entirety of
complete
it.
recovery of economic activity
Like a
after the
skin
peak of
pink,
this
like a
virus has
rosy
passed?
skin.
So what changed? Of course, we've been carefully monitoring the situation since it first became known, and waiting to see how it would evolve. And I think we've come to the view now that it is time for us to act
Right,
and support the
and-
economy. And once you reach that decision, we decided to go ahead. So what changed really was,
What do I
would
like
say, over
here?
the course of the last couple of weeks, we've seen a broader spread of the virus. We've seen it begin to spread a bit here in the United States. But for us, what
Oh, I
really
wasn't
matters,
expecting
folks,
to like
is not the
that as
epidemiology,
much as
but
I do.
the risk to the economy. So
But I
we
do.
saw a risk to the outlook for the
Okay,
economy.
well
in
maybe I'll
terms
use
of
that.
In terms
Go
of
up to a
my
new layer.
confidence that we'll return to
Brush.
How do you expect this to the economy to recover from
And now I'm
this?
gonna
Do you
zoom
see it as
out
a
to get
persistent
that
decline in activity or something that will be
look.
relatively temporary and short-lived?
I don't think anybody knows how long it will be. I do know that the U.S. economy is strong, and we will get to the other side of this, and I fully expect that we'll return to solid growth and a solid labor market as well.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Jim Tankersley, New York Times. You said that the ultimate solutions will come from others, and I have two questions about that. First, is this part of a coordinated action with other central banks, and should we be expecting to see more as part of that? And second, what would you like to see from American fiscal policymakers in response to these new threats?
Okay, so first question, we were in active discussions with central banks around the world on an ongoing basis, as you would guess. I've been in regular contact with central bank leaders from around the world. That will continue. Central banks are doing what makes sense in their particular institutional context, but we're all talking to each other on an ongoing basis. And our action today represents what we think is the right policy for us in our particular institutional context under our domestic standard. You saw this morning's G7 statement of finance ministers and governors, and I think that statement does reflect coordination at a high level in the form of a commitment to use all available tools, including healthcare policy, fiscal policy.
Bring this
and
white up
monetary
into
policy
that.
as a whole.
Don't know if I love that.
So, in terms of fiscal
Doesn't
policy,
matter.
again, not
Having
our role.
fun
We have,
sketching.
we have a full plate with monetary policy, not our role to
Which
give
is the
advice to
point.
fiscal policymakers, but
Because man, when
we
I
saw
started out, I
the
was not
G7
feeling good.
statement, as appropriate as well.
Sorry, Heather Scott with AFP. The G7 statement seemed to indicate that that policymakers would use tools but were not going to do anything imminent. Does this contradict that, or is this in keeping with the action, the statement by the G7 this morning? And can I ask what would cause you to take another step? What would you be looking for in terms of the economic outlook or data?
So the sense of the G7, is to you have 7 countries obviously, and different policies, different situations, different mandates, a lot of overlap. And the sense of that is to get together as a group and say at a high level that these are the things we're going to do. We're going to use our tools, all of our tools, in a strong way to try to support the economy. So it's a statement of general support. I think within that you will see actions. You've seen our action, and I think it's up to individual countries, individual fiscal policies, and individual central banks to do what they're going to do. I would think it's possible there will be some more formal coordination as we move forward. In terms of moving forward, I would say that we do like our current policy stance.
And should I do just a basic white outline?
But as I said in my statement, we're prepared to use our tools and act appropriately.
And just break all of this down.
But I think the biggest thing is watching, so we can change that.
I can't point to any one thing. It's always a range of things.
Heather Long from the Washington Post. There's been some rising concern about credit markets and possible insolvencies and defaults, either from businesses or individuals from the coronavirus. Can you speak to, is the FOMC talking about this? Are we likely to see any emergency provisions?
All right, and
the CRA activated, or things that you normally do during?
That's it. I'm gonna toss in a couple of these.
So we don't see any of that happening yet. Of course, we are thinking about what we can do should those things happen. There's no evidence yet. The economy continues to perform well.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put a large one here. Large.
Most directly exposed, but there's nothing in
And then just go back to tiny up this way. Okay, and that works.
Sort of thing. I think when it comes to those sorts
Good
of issues,
enough.
we will be the supervisor.
Tap in
will
the
work with
exact
banks to
weights
ensure
where I
they
want
work
them.
with their borrowers and that sort of thing. So I can imagine us doing those sorts of things, but those things are not upon us at the moment.
Thank you, Brendan Greeley, Financial Times. Has the committee discussed any other monetary policy tools in addition to rate cuts and the pacing and timing of when they might be appropriate?
Well, as you know, we're in the middle of a review of all of our tools. So if you go back a few meetings, we've talked about where
Actually,
our
we'll
toolkit
go
is, and we've put
there.
that in minutes. But
Yeah,
in the
that
current
works.
context, no. What we discussed is the current stance of policy, is it appropriate, came to the
And then just a
it's
few
appropriate to make a change, and went ahead and did that.
pure whites for the hair. There you go. Sketch.
Rich Miller with Bloomberg. Thank you very much for having the press conference. Can you take us a little through the reasoning behind the rate cut a little bit more in depth? You know, was there
Lips don't feel right to me.
Shock? You know,
So I'm gonna go with a bit of a red. Oh, it's been just about an hour now too, so I should get ready to leave.
I wonder if you could just give us a little bit more depth on.
Thanks to anybody who watches these through, comes in and watches me draw and speak to myself.
The virus outbreak is something that will require a multifaceted.
It truly does mean a lot to me when people are here watching, or when people watch them later.
It will also come from
Or if you just skip through to see what the art looks like at the end. I'm also cool with that. Leave a comment, say hi.
But there's also a role for monetary policy. Monetary policy can be an effective tool to support overall economic activity. We do
I just put that red in on the same layer as I put the white. That's fine.
Supply chain, we get that. We don't think we have all the answers. But we do believe that our action will provide a meaningful boost to the economy. More specifically,
I'll go up
it will support
to
accommodative
the top.
financial conditions and avoid a tightening of financial conditions, which can weigh on activity.
Take the
And it
actual
will
lip
help boost
color again and
household
put it
and
back in
business
over
confidence.
here.
That's why you're seeing central banks around the world responding as they see appropriate in their particular institutional context.
Thanks. Elon Way from CNBC. Can you tell us what you would do if the virus ends up being contained fairly quickly? Would you envision the Fed actually raising rates in short order if the economic damage doesn't occur the way that you potentially fear? And I have a second question, which is President Trump was just tweeting about you this morning and talking about the Fed's need to cut rates. Did you feel any political pressure to make this move?
Here you go.
On your first question, we're always going to set monetary.
All right, I'm going to throw this into my sketchings folder. February, no, March. Wow, I got to change it to March.
If we get to a place where we think it's an appropriate time to change the stance of monetary policy, we won't hesitate to do that.
March 3rd,
I would also
2020,
say that,
live sketch.
It's very important.
And it just ended up being two faces.
That we will always make our decisions based on what's thinking we have, based on our.
But that's cool.
We learn from our outreach.
It's all right to.
Businesses, nonprofits, educational institutions that we get.
As long as you get something done and something created, I think you're
and the best
fine.
Analysis, the best research. We're always going to make our decisions in the interest of the American people to carry forward and
so there.
try to achieve the mandate.
There's our two sketches.
We're never going to consider any political considerations whatsoever. We will not do that. It's very important to understand.
Chris Reagan, Associated Press.
Oh my God.
You mentioned a little bit of outreach. Some of the Fed bank presidents were talking about last week how much they were going to listen to their contacts. Have you gotten reports sort of from the ground, from your business contacts, nonprofits and so forth, that have affected your decision?
All right.
What are you hearing from all those folks?
We are hearing, I would just say,
yeah, like I said there a moment ago while finishing up. Thank you very much for watching. Means a lot. Chip back in whenever you can. Like, subscribe, share, all that great stuff. And truly, from like me to you, have a great day. I hope you have a great day. All right. Dun 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 dun. Quack. That shouldn't say be right back, because that's over now. You can leave. I'm not going to be right back.
In bacterial or viral infections, it seems sometimes, it's sort of tried.
Seriously. Go.